A very good morning and warm welcome to one and all. I, Ms. Mosmi Vanzare, welcome you all for the webinar on Awareness on National Education Policy 2020, organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell and IEEE Student Branch of All India Shri Shivaji Memorial Society's Institute of Information Technology, Pune. The webinar will be delivered by Dr. P.B. Mane, Principal of AISSMS IOIT. The National Education Policy was framed in 1986 and modified in 1992. More than 3 decades have passed since previous policy. During this period, significant changes have taken place in our country, society, economy, and the world at large. It is in this context that the education sector needs to gear itself towards the demands of the 21st century and the needs of the people and the country. Quality, innovation, and research will be the pillars on which India will become a knowledge superpower. Clearly, a new education policy is needed. The government had initiated the process of formulating a new education policy through the consultation process for an inclusive, participatory, and holistic approach, which takes into consideration expert opinions, field experiences, empirical research, stakeholder feedback, as well as lessons learned from best practices. The draft National Education Policy 2019 was uploaded on the website of Ministry of Education and also at MyGov Innovate portal, inviting views, suggestions and comments of stakeholders. We at AISSMS IOIT had a discussion on the draft and submitted our suggestions to the ministry.
The education policy was announced by the central government on 29th July, and prior to that, last year, the draft of the policy was published, and we as an institute had given certain feedbacks on the policy framework which was there. We are taking the inputs from all our teachers as well as the students, whom we thought that the impact would be very much on them. So we had taken certain feedbacks, and we had given certain suggestions, and we had given in all total 7 suggestions, of which one of the suggestions about the accreditation committee or body. So in this framework, a single accreditation body has been formed. I think the other suggestions were about mandatory PhD for all the teachers. So these 2 or 3 suggestions, I think, have been taken into consideration, which itself shows that the feedbacks given by both the teachers and students were also embedded. The government had actually taken these feedbacks, and they nearly received more than 2 lakh suggestions and feedback, based on which this policy draft came into being. Later on, again, after the publishing of this policy, the government again asked for the feedbacks, and even last week also, till the 31st August, the teachers can give their feedbacks if they feel that further certain changes are to be made in this. So the first national education policy was published at that time in the year 1968. Later on, the second policy came in the year 1986, which was revised in 1992. And the major development in that policy was the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, through which it was mandatory for all the institutes to see to that they give opportunities to all the children for getting education. Then moving on to the principles of this policy. So this policy aims at producing engaged, productive, contributing citizen for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our constitution. Then it also talks about development of creative potential of each individual, and it also mentions that they do not want to develop only the cognitive capacities. but they also want that the foundational capacities of literacy, numeracy, and high order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving to be taken into consideration. Then what is the vision of this policy? The vision of this policy says that it wants to instill among the learners. So it is very clear that the policy is centered towards the learner, or what we say it is student centric. So it wants that the learners have a deep rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, and as well as to develop knowledge, skills, and values. And the vision is also that the student should become truly global citizens. So this is what is the vision of this policy. Then let us move on to the first part of this policy. So in all, there are the policy is of 60 pages. It is divided into 4 parts. The first part deals with the school education. Second part deals with the higher education. The third part deals with the key aspects, and the fourth part deals as to how the policy will be implemented. So now let us see as to what are the highlights of this first part, that is the school education. Now there is a change in the structure of the school education pattern. As all of who are attending this awareness program, you are well versed with the regular 10+2 pattern, in which you used to do your schooling right from your first you had the nursery, the junior KG, senior KG, and then at the age of 6 years, you were to be in the first standard. And then by 16 years, it was expected that you completed your 10th education, then further moving on to the 11th and 12th standard. You used to choose your stream, that is science, arts, commerce, depending upon what your grades were. Now, coming to this new policy, they have changed the structure in this way that they have made it as 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Now, what is this first 5 pattern? So, what does this pattern indicate? So, again, now over here, in spite of this 10 plus 12 pattern, we have the 5 plus 3, that is 8, plus 3, that is 11, plus 4, that is total education will be of 15 years. The school education will be 15 years. And then how it is segregated. So, the first 5 years are called as the foundation, then the another 3 years, the preparatory, then the middle stage, and the secondary school. So moving on to this, what has happened now is that now the policy says that the students should start their education right from their age of 3 years, and they should continue till their age of 18 years. Now, the important thing, what should be noted over here is that in the previous policy, the act was from 6 to 14 age. Now over here, it is from 3 to 18 years. So they have considered that it should increase the number of years. So now the first part is the foundation, where the first 3 years, as I said, in our pattern, we had the nursery or play group, then the senior junior KG. So over here, it is called as the Anganwadis or the preschool or Balvatikas, where the students will learn through various plays. So as many of you may be knowing that nowadays the concepts are taught in an enjoyable way, where certain toys are there which helps the kids to understand the concepts, maybe numeric concepts or other concepts. So in the same way, the first 3 years, these students, there won't be any examination part of it. It will be just a play group sort of thing, and where it is expected that while playing, the students will also learn certain things. Then the next stage is at the age of 6. Again, the student will go into the first year, that is the first class, second class. So this pattern of foundation is very important. And as I move towards, I'll also brief what this means over here. Then moving on to this first part. So it has been said that the early childhood care and education, the foundation of learning. So the emphasis has been given on this very concept that there should be an early childhood care and education, the foundation of learning, because it has been said that the uh, kid, he starts learning from his year 3, and whatever he learns till his age of 7 or 8 years is what we can say uh, pakka into his mind, and it rather helps in understanding or developing himself. So the overall aim of this early childhood care education, which we call it as the foundation of learning, it aims to obtain the optimal outcomes in the domains of. So the first is, we are talking about the physical and motor development, then the cognitive development, which is cognitive means related to your mental abilities, then the socio emotional ethical developments, then the cultural artistic developments, development of communication and early language, literacy and numeracy. So these are the things what is expected, that in his first 5 years, the student must learn all these things, but it should be in an enjoyable manner. So for this, a national curricula and pedagogical framework for early childhood care and education for children up to age of 8 years will be developed by NCERT, that is the National Council for Education, Research and Teaching, in two parts, namely as the first subgroup of 0 to 3 years old students and the second subgroup of 3 to 8 years old. So this is what is expected, what the early childhood care education will take care of. Then moving on to the next part, as I mentioned that in the early years, that is 0 to 3, the students will be going to the Anganwadis. And what is expected over here is that the ECCE shall be delivered through a significantly expanded and strengthened system of early childhood education institution, which consists of, as I said, the standalone Anganwadis or the Anganwadis co-located with primary schools, or then we have the pattern can be pre-primary schools or sections covering at least age of 5 to 6 years co-located within existing primary schools or standalone preschools. So what is expected in this new policy is that there can be standalone Anganwadis or they can be along with the pre-schools, as we know that many a times the pattern currently is that we do have separate nurseries, then we do have separate senior or junior KG schools, and then the kid moves on to another school where he starts his education from the first standard. So now the policy mentions that there can be attached uh, what you can see schools or Anganwadis along with the schools itself. And then it is emphasized that prior to the age of 5, every child will move to a preparatory class or what is called as the Balavatika before the class 1. And then what has been mentioned is, as I have already said, that the learning in preparatory classes should be based on play-based learning. So the focus is on play-based learning. And what will it lead to is, or what will it develop is that it will develop the cognitive, affective, psychomotor abilities and early literacy and numeracy. So what is expected is that up till the age of 5, the student will not be exposed to the pattern of examination, but he will be made to learn things through play-based learning, which will be enjoyable for him. Because what has been observed is that many of us, when we recall our childhood, we were afraid many times of going to the schools. The sole reason was that in our early childhood, we were made to appear for the examinations, and that created maybe certain stress and other things. So now it has been given a thought that up till this age group, the students will be exposed to school so that they will enjoy going to a school. Because it usually happens that if in the early ages, if the student starts liking going to the school, then it will be very good, because we know that many a times because of this heavy syllabus structure and the stresses on the students, they tend not to go for schools. So what we expected over here is that the child will now not go crying to the school, but he will enjoy going to the school, because the thing is that in the best possible manner, he'll be taught all those things through the play-based learning. Then even this ECC will be introduced in the ashram shala in the tribal dominated areas, because this policy has specifically taken care of the tribal dominated areas. And as we know that there are many ashram shalas where this policy can be further implemented. Then moving on to the further thing, that who is going to take the responsibility? The responsibility for the curricula, the monitoring and other things, it will be carried out jointly by the ministers of HRD, the Women and Child Development, the Health and Family Welfare and Tribal Affairs. So it will be a special task force created, because we know that certain policies are being designed, but they are not implemented, or there is usually a communication gap found between the various bodies who are concerned with imparting this education. So a very good thing has been said in this policy is that who will be the responsible. So the duties or the responsibilities have been identified, and it has been said that a special joint task force of all of them will be created to see that there is smooth integration of this early childhood care education. Then a very important next thing is that the pupil teacher ratio uh, of 30:1 will be ensured at level of each school, and where you have areas where there are socially economically disadvantaged students, the uh, pupil teacher ratio will be under 25:1. So care has been taken that where there are socially economically disadvantaged students, more attention and care will be taken about them. Over there, the pupil to student ratio will be less than 25:1. So very good important thing in this policy. Then further moving to prepare the initial cadre of ECC, so the framework will be developed by NCRT. One important thing what the policy emphasizes is that the current teachers who are there, who are teaching in the Anganwadis, they will be trained, and they will be trained in such a manner is that the Anganwadi teachers who have qualification of 10+2, they will be given a special 6 month certification program, and those teachers whose qualification is below that, maybe 10 standard, they'll be given a 1 year diploma program covering the early literacy, numeracy, and other relevant aspects. So it is very important thing to note that this policy has taken care that while when the policy is framed and what outcome they are expecting, they are seeing to it that the teachers are geared up or prepared for applying those things to the students, because otherwise the policy may say lot many good things, but if the teachers are not prepared or if they are unaware about what they are supposed to teach to the students, then there will be a total chaos. So the policy has clearly mentioned that what the teachers or how the teachers should upgrade themselves. So very good thing in this policy is that the teachers will have to undergo their upgradation in the form of either a certificate program or a diploma program. Then moving on to the next part, the foundation literacy and numeracy, it has been felt that it is an urgent and necessary prerequisite to learning. Because we know that whatever things we learn in our early childhood, we remember them and we grasp them in the best possible manner. And the need has been there is that the student should be taught about the literacy and numeracy in the early age. Then one more important thing, as all of you may be aware, that in the government run schools, you know that there is a midday meal. So the government has again taken care of the good meals of the students, and again they'll be providing even the breakfast. So what we have observed is that the students are socially disadvantaged. Many a times it happens that the main first priority of the students going to the school is that they get their regular meals, and this has brought many downtrodden students to the schools, and the results are also good. So the same things have been maintained, and the government will see to it that it will be implemented in the best possible manner. And for this, there will be well-trained social workers, counselors, and there will be also involvement of the community in the schooling system. So again, it has been talked about that there will be inclusion of everybody when the education at the school level is being given. And then curtailing dropout rates and ensuring universal access to education to all. So as mentioned that the main aim is that to curtail the dropout rate, because we know that till the students reach the 10 standard, the dropout rate is very large. In my further slides, I'll come to the exact figures. But as all of us know that when we talk about, let us talk, I'll just take the example of the higher education. When we talk about the gross enrollment ratio, as on today, it is only 25% of the 25% gross enrollment ratio has been achieved in our Indian professional colleges. So we can see that there is a very large dropout rate. Then what are the two initiatives that have been taken to curtail the dropout rate and to make education accessible at all levels is that to provide effective and sufficient infrastructure, which is very important, then alternative and innovative education centers to be put in place. So as we know that it is very important that unless and until these schools do have a very effective and sufficient infrastructure, even though the teachers are very good, even though they are working from the bottom of their heart, they won't be able to deliver what is required. So it is very important that the thought has been given that the schools will be having effective and sufficient infrastructure along with the innovations in the teaching learning to be brought about. And second thing is to achieve the universal participation in school by carefully tracking students as well as their learning levels. So again, the second important thing is now the tracking of the students will be also done, which is a very important thing in this policy. And if this is done, then we should believe that by 2040, what the policy expect is that we'll be having 100% enrollment of the students in the schools going up till the higher education. So indeed, a very good thing has been said over here that the students will be carefully tracked and it will be seen that how the drop-off rate and how everybody will be availing the education. Then further moving over here, one more thing, as I already mentioned about the socially and economically disadvantaged group. So special care has been taken about that group. Then one more thing, what this policy mentions is about the open and distance learning programs, and they will be offered by the National Institute of Open Schooling and the state open level schoolings. So a good emphasis has been given because many a times it has been observed that some classes of the students, they are not able to go physically. So this initiative, I think, of the open and distance learning to be taken care both at the national and the state level will surely take care that the enrollment of the students will be increased. And then the focus will be to have less emphasis on input and greater emphasis on outcome potential concerning desired learning outcomes. Now, since all of you are from the professional colleges, all the students and the teachers are aware that our council, that is the All India Council for Technical Education, and even the National Board of Accreditation and the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, they are emphasizing now on the outcome. So what is expected now is, okay, we should talk about what the student is going to learn after completing his graduation, and we are not going to talk about what are the inputs. So the same concept, what has been started in the professional colleges, it has been further taken down to the school levels. And I think that if these things start coming, and where the accountability is going to come into picture, and when the teachers will start thinking about what my student is going to learn on completion of maybe his first standard, second standard, third standard. So these things are going to help, because all of you may be knowing that we are taking into consideration the Bloom's taxonomy, where we are talking about the different levels of learning. So all these things, when they come to the school level, we must be very sure that yes, the students who will be taking education, there will be more emphasis on what they are learning, what is their learning outcomes. And then one more thing has been talked in this policy is that there will be efforts made to involve the community and alumni in volunteer efforts. So the government is also taking care that, as I already mentioned previously, that they want the inclusion of everybody, all the stakeholders, in seeing to it that the education is being imparted, and it will be a voluntary work, maybe a good effort. Also, we see that many of us do volunteer, go to the slums and teach them. So maybe if it comes as a policy, then there will be more concrete things happening in that way. Then moving on to the curricula and pedagogy in schools, learning should be holistic. Now, what I have talked is, I'll again go back to the structure, the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So we talked about the first 5 years, where we talked about that the first 3 years will be the play group. There will be the first standard and second standard. Then the student will move on to his third, fourth, and fifth. Then in this third, fourth, and fifth, what is he going to learn? Then in the 6, 7, 8, what is he going to learn? And then in his 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, what is he going to learn? So now what has been thought is that already we have seen that till his uh, uh, second standard, we have talked about the early childhood care education, which again continues till the fifth standard. So care has been taken over there. And then when he moves on to his middle school, because in the structure, we are saying that the first 5 years are the foundation, the second 3 years are the preparatory, then the next 3 years are the middle, and then the remaining 4 years are the secondary. So now the emphasis, when he moves on to the fifth standard. As all of us know that till the fourth standard, we were just learning one subject, in which maybe if it was English medium, the medium was English. And then when we came to fifth, then we had either Marathi, Hindi, and other languages were there. So again, in this platform, the same thing will be there. The three language formula will be continued till the eighth standard. Then further on eighth standard, what has been said over here is that these students can take other subjects also, where the other subjects, the other languages, which I mean is the Indian languages, right? As currently also, as many of us know that maybe from the 8th, 9th, and 10th, we used to take Sanskrit or German or French and other languages. So the emphasis is there, similar emphasis. And then coming to the foreign language, so in the secondary school, the emphasis will be more on the foreign languages. So when he moves on to the ninth standard, the student can take the foreign language, but from his sixth, seventh, eighth standard, he can opt for some of the Indian languages. So when we talk about this languages, this three language formula will be still there. And very one important thing is that now the policy has also started talking about education or textbooks in bilingual, which is very important thing, because as all of us know, and one more thing I just forgot to mention is that what has been mentioned in the policy is that the education till the first 5 years, or rather till the fifth standard, should be in his own mother tongue, because we know that when we learn certain things in mother tongue, we do not forget things, and it is also very easy to understand. Now, all of you, those who are into the English medium schools, and your parents had studied in Marathi medium, you might have found that it might have been very difficult for you to understand the concepts, apply them, because usually when we think or when the creativity comes, it comes in our own mother tongue. So it has been proposed that the uh, medium till fifth standard should be in the mother tongue, and then maybe further on the other languages can be taught. We don't know as of today how the things will be there, because we do have the English medium school, because this is also the concern which many educationists have pointed out. So let us see or hope that the best thing in the policy, and even all of us have experienced that when we learn certain things in our mother tongue, and that too in our early childhood, we develop the liking. The first thing is that liking, because when I studied in my mother tongue, I like those things because I understand. When do I start liking? When I understand certain things. So this is a very important thing which has been emphasized. And then the other languages, as has been said, is that the other Indian languages or the foreign languages can come further in the higher levels. Then one more thing of importance, then the restructuring of the school and pedagogy. There will be Indian sign languages will be standardized across the country. So this has been again talked about. Then the curricular integration with subject skills and capacities, we've already said. Now a very important thing is introduction of contemporary subjects such as artificial intelligence, etc. So in the policy talks about that in the middle level, that is 6 to 8, the students will be taught about coding, which is a very important thing, because as all of us know that today India, our majority of GDP is coming from our IT industry, and the care has been taken that okay, in the middle stage itself, the students will be made aware about the basics of coding and other things, so that they'll be made more exposed to the computer literacy, which is a very important thing. And then we are talking about the contemporary subjects like the artificial intelligence, other things will be also, the students can be given exposure. Then the vocational crafts such as carpentry, electric work, metal work, gardening, pottery, etc. This will be coming in the secondary school. Now, a very important thing is the emphasis has been given that many of the students, they may be having these occasional subjects from their ninth standard, ninth and 10th. But now it has been said that these vocational subjects will be there, and the students can opt for this, because we know that the students can learn all these things, because now what has been said in the policy is that there won't be the compartment of the arts, commerce, and science, but right from the secondary school, that is from the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th standard, depending upon his what you can say, what he would like to learn, he'll be going into that particular area, or he'll start developing his own area. So these vocational subjects will be offered in the middle school. Then it has been said that the knowledge of India, because many a times it happens that the students are not having the proper knowledge, so certain things will be there. Then development of basic ethical reasoning, traditional Indian values, and all basic human constitution values will be again imbibed in the students. Then uh, the national curriculum framework for school education, revision of curriculum, it has been said will be after every 5 to 10 years, a very good thing which has been taken care of. Then there will be the national textbook with local content flavor. So the policy also talks about considering the local ecosystem, and the things will be taken that whatever local things are there can be also included in the contents, because different states may be having different specialties. So the textbooks can also contain those things, so that the students learn or come to know about them in the when they are doing their schooling. Because many times we have observed that when we are in the schools, we are away from our culture and traditions, and we are not made known to those things. So maybe inclusion of these things will also be very good thing. And the very important thing is significantly reduce the weight of school bags and textbooks. Many a times there have been lot of debates, lot of deliberations on the weight of the school bags. So over here, this has been talked about in the policy. So let us hope that due weightage will be given, and let us see how these things will be implemented, because saying in the policy and implementing is a important thing. So I think that because of this things which the policy talks, right from making the students learn through playing, then in the middle age or in the preparatory school, making the students learn through their mother tongue, then in the uh, middle age, making the students learn the different languages or vocational subjects, and then in the secondary school, without grading them as arts, commerce, or science students, the students will be able to identify what they are best into, and then they'll be either going to the professional colleges or non-professional colleges. So the one important thing which says over here is that the board exams for grade 10th and 12th will be continued, but they will not be there as in the current format. The format will be going to be changed. There will be semester type of exams. So it won't be in the annual pattern. So it had been talked that there will be a grading system, so which again will help the students, and the burden will be reduced. And since there is no bifurcation in the arts, commerce, or science streams, the students who have a liking towards that, they will be developing those likings in their secondary school, that is right from 9, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and then they'll choose where they want to go. So this is, I think, the best part of this policy. Yeah. Then moving on, I already discussed transformation in assessment systems will be there. As I mentioned, the assessment won't be as what we have the system. So it is proposed to set up the National Assessment Center, PARAK, a very important thing. PARAK means Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. So what has been talked about here is the holistic development. The meaning of holistic is the all-round development, and this is what the policy is talking about. So the policy is talking about is that the student should not be only knowing their subjects, like when we are in school, the basic things what we learn is we learn the three languages, then we learn the science, maths, geography, history. But along with this, the importance will be also given to the extra and the co-curricular activities, the project-based learnings and other things, where the holistic development of the student will be made. So a national assessment center will see as to how the students will be assessed. So let us expect that the current examination system, where the students are having the rote learning. So the policy has clearly mentioned that they want to move away from the rote learning to make the students to learn how to learn and make the things more interesting. So I hope that if these things go on properly, so we should expect that yes, by 2040, what the policy mentions that we will be none to other in the world when we talk about the education system in India. So let us hope that yes, if all the things go smoothly or in a coordinated manner, all of us should hope that yes, surely we'll be topping uh, talking. And the important thing is that, as all of us know today, right from when the student goes in his first standard, the parents are going in for tuitions or coaching classes, which in itself, I think, when the things are made playful, or when the student starts liking, because a very psychological thing is that when I like something, I do it from bottom of my heart. And when certain things are taught in that manner, or when the students start liking those subjects, I don't think that they'll require some external coaching or tuition classes. So I think that the government's aim is also that we should get rid of these coaching classes, and all the teachers who have joined over here, or even the students, will agree with this, is because most of the time we are spending with the coaching classes and giving less importance to what is being taught in the school. So I think if this things goes on very properly, we will be going, and the progress will be tracked throughout the school years, and not just at the end of the 10th and 12th standards, but the progress will be there for the grade 3rd, 5th and 8th also. There will be the tracking of the progress will be done. So a very important thing to be noted. And then the principle for university entrance exam, as you know today, we have lot many different examinations for entrance into engineering, medical, and all those things. So as all of you are aware, now we also have the National Testing Agency, the NTA, which is conducting today the JEE and the NEET exams for the medical and the engineering courses. Further, this will be taking care of all the other entrance exams, a very important thing. And also we had given a feedback on the similar basis. And as students will agree to this, is that when they're taking admissions, they do not know as to which examinations they are supposed to give. Now, when we have the National Testing Agency at the center level conducting the examination nationwide, I think there will be limited number of exams, and this then the students may not have to prepare for the things, and there will be a very high quality common aptitude test, and it will be conducted at least twice in a year. And as of you may be knowing that from this year the JEE exam has already been started twice a year. Already one exam has taken place in the month of January, and because of this pandemic, it was scheduled in May, but now it is there from 1st till 6th September. Again, the NEET is also there. So already the government has said that yes, we have already started implementation of this policy. Now, one thing I just want to mention over here is that, see, now this is a policy. It is not a resolution. Neither it is an item of the budget. So it is not mandatory on the government to take the policy as it is. But what we have seen now is that yes, the government has already started implementing some of the points of the policy, which at least in higher education we are observing. Because as we move on to higher education, we will feel that yes, okay, all these things are already into existence. So even this National Testing Agency, which I have just mentioned, it has already started. So the government has already started implementing certain parts of the policy, and there are certain deadlines which they are going to follow for certain things. As we proceed, we'll just see about the deadlines also. Then the important thing is support to gifted students and students with special talents. So care has been also taken that, as we know that the students do have different levels of intelligence, we can say. There are certain gifted students and they want to do something more from the others. So even those students will be identified, and they may be given extra things will be offered rather than the other regular students. So today also we have the Olympiads and other competitions. Now in many schools they have started with the project-based clubs and circles. So this has now come into the policy specifically. And the important thing is now the schools will be developing the smart classrooms. And today in this era of digital India, we know that everything has gone digital. Even today, which we had not thought in the month of March that we may be having conducting this webinar, because there was a constraint of always the number when we had talked about the infrastructure. Today, I hope all our 2,000 students and all our teaching and non-teaching students, almost more than 2,000 of you, have gathered over here for this awareness program. So this concept of this digital India or digital domain has really made these changes, and even the policy has started talking. And maybe when it comes to the school level, many of you might have seen that some schools have already started implementing the augmented reality and virtual reality, where the students are going to learn the concepts, where they are going to feel the things which they might have not experienced. So this is a very great thing which has started, and the policy has specifically mentioned this thing. So let us hope that yes, and we have seen that yes, already certain schools have started implementing these things in there. Now coming to the teachers, the very important stakeholder into this education system is the teacher, because we know that into any education system, the main stakeholders are, let us say, first is the management. The management can be either the government or the private sectors or the philanthropists who have opened out their schools or colleges. So they are the first stakeholder. Then we move on to the other thing is the teachers, then the students, then their parents, then the employees who are going to employ them. So these are the stakeholders, and one of the important stakeholder in the institute is the teacher. And when we come to the institute as a whole, the important thing is that okay, you may be having a very great infrastructure, but if you are not having good quality teachers, then the infrastructure will be waste, or it can be either vice versa. When I talked about in my earlier slide that it has been guaranteed in the policy that there will be effective and sufficient infrastructure along with good quality teachers. So now let us see what are the changes or what things have been said about or talked about the school teachers. So as of now, we know that the B.Ed program was of 1 year. It has been made 2 years, but now it is specifically there will be a 4 years B.Ed program for the teachers, where I think elaborations will be there, because many of us know that yes, there are many teachers who are not well versed as to how they are supposed to teach. So I think with this 4 years integrated B.Ed program, the things will improve. The important thing is in the government sector, we know that there are transfers of teachers. So they have said that there won't be excessive teacher transfers will be halted. Then teacher eligibility test will be strengthened. Today we have the TET, but it is they are talking about strengthening it. So let us expect that more good quality teachers will come into the system, and the teachers could be recruited to a school or school complex. Then school complexes will be encouraged to hire local eminent persons or experts as master instructors in various parts. Now I'll just spend some time on this. See, up till now, there were certain regulations that certain norms and eligibilities were there for teachers. But now the education policy talks about the vocational things, and they are talking about teaching the different trades to the students in their middle age school. So what they have done is that, let us say if they want to teach pottery, and then maybe in the local area there is a very good potter, but let us say he's not educated, but he is a master or expert in his domain. So there will be a facility that the school can invite him, or they can take him on the role as a what you can say as a master instructor, and the focus will be majority on the skills. So this is a very good thing, because now since it has come into the policy, let us hope that the very good teachers or master instructors will come, which will directly help the students in gaining the vocational subject knowledge. So very important and a great thing which has been talked and brought into the policy. So hire local eminent persons or experts, because we know that there are because as all of you know, what we say in Marathi is that we have Chauda Vidya and 64 Kala. So all these 64 Kalas, we have various Kalakars in this area, but maybe they have not gone through the formal education, but it is a God's gift to them, and they are masters in their own. So the policy talks about hiring them and bringing them or making the students learn from them. So very good thing in this policy. Then moving to the service environment and culture. So it is expected that there will be a decent and pleasant service conditions. Teachers will be involved in the governance. Their say will be taken, as all of you know, in the uh, higher education. Already we have the college development committee, where the teachers are part and parcel and involved in the decision making. So again, this will be brought into the school levels, also a very good thing. And the important thing is that the teachers will be given more autonomy in choosing aspects of pedagogy. So very important thing is that the thing about autonomy has been talked about, because there is a possibility that if the autonomy is given to the teachers, they may think in the best possible way as to what they want as per their local needs, and in what best possible way they can teach the students. So a very good point which has been taken note or pointed out in the education policy. Then for the teachers, there will be continuous professional development. So it is expected that by default, the teacher should make their professional development. Then there will be opportunities for them through the career management progression. Then professional standards for teachers will be there. And what is expected is that they will be having a common guiding set of national professional standards for teachers, that is NPST, which will be developed by 2022. So deadline is over here is that a standard operating procedure or certain standards for the professional teachers will be there, and it will come out in the year 2020. Then special educators will be there for children with disabilities and Divyang. So it has been talked about the education for the Divyang students, a very good thing which has been come in policy, and even it has been talked about that special educators will be appointed for them. Then the approach to teacher education. So it is expected that teacher education will gradually move by 2030 into multidisciplinary college and universities. A very important thing. By 2030, the minimum degree qualification for teacher will be 4-year integrated B.Ed, which we have already said. Then the teachers can go for special shorter local education programs, or they can have shorter B.Ed certificate programs in order to upgrade themselves. Good thing. So that one thing the teachers, school teachers will have to keep in mind is that they'll have to keep on upgrading themselves. Indeed, because unless and until they upgrade their selves, they won't be able to deliver the latest trends or the latest pedagogies or the latest innovations which are there in the education. Then the important thing is equitable and inclusive education. Now the policy talks about equitable and inclusive education, that is learning for all. The data which is available from the Unified District Information System for Education, the UDICE 1670 data talks about that 19.6% of the students belonging to the scheduled caste at the primary level, but this fraction falls to 70.3 at the higher secondary. Similarly, for the ST students, the dropout rate comes to 6.8. For the differently abled, it comes to 0.25. And for the female students, it is again worse than this. So these are the statistical figure which, when we are talk about the drop down rates, so the statistical figure shows that yes, currently there is a very huge dropout rate. And in order to make the students of these socially, economically uh, students, certain things will be there. So the first thing is that special mechanisms should be made for them to receive the benefits of these interventions. One important thing, what has been talked in the policy is very important. It is said that it is recommended that regions of the country where with large populations of socially, educationally disadvantaged students, that is socially and economically disadvantaged groups, should be declared as special education zones. So I think this is a very important thing which the government or the policy talks about, is that the special education zones will be made where in the regions where there is a large number of socially and economically disadvantaged groups of students. Indeed, a very good thing. And maybe those students will also be brought into the education system. Then we can say that it will be, the education will be inclusive for all, and the learning for all will take place. Then in addition to this, the gender inclusion will be there. Even the policy talks about education for the transgender students also, which was not talked up till now. So now this policy has also given emphasis on education for the transgender students. Then one important thing is the policy talks about free boarding facilities for the girls up till grade 12. So the as we have seen that the dropout rate of the girls is maximum. So if this facility of boarding school is given, because we know that when this girls from the rural, they do not have the education facility, they may be having schools up till maybe fifth standard, then they have to move on to their taluka place, then to the city. And because of these facilities, the students are not able to continue their education. So if free boarding facilities are made available for all the girl students till the grade 12, I think that at least there won't be dropout of the girl students till the 12th standard. So a very good important thing. And one more thing we talked about the Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, and it also talks about inclusion of the students in the higher education. Special facilities like the ramp, lift, and other things has been made mandatory. So even in the school levels, maybe these things will be made mandatory, and special efforts are taken to see to it that even these students are not left out from education. So the policy in all talks about the inclusiveness and seeing to it that all the sectors they are getting education. Yeah. So we have already talked about the Divyang students. One important thing is that the Ministry of Defense state government may encourage opening NCC wings in the secondary and higher education schools. If you have listened to the Prime Minister's speech on the 15th August, he specifically mentioned about this NCC wings, and they have opened out in this coastal area 100 districts they have identified, and around 1 lakh 50,000 students they will be enrolling in this NCC wings, which, as I said, that they have started already implementing certain part of the policy, and this is one of the thing which I thought I should highlight over here. So this is also a very important thing. Then we talked about the SEDGs, that is the socially and economically disadvantaged students. And the important thing is that up till now, there were different agencies giving the scholarships and other things. So it has been said that there will be coordination through a single agency, and there will be a single window system, so that the students are made aware about all the scholarship and other facilities applicable to them, and then it will be through a single window. As of now, even all you students may be knowing that we have the SC scholarship, we have the ST scholarship, we have the VJ, NTDT, and the offices are different. Then we also have the ESWC, then the OBC. So all these scholarships currently are given by different agencies, and there is no single window facility. So I think if this happens, then it will be a very good thing for all the students, that they come to know and they can avail all these facilities. So even this will be moved down to the school education. Indeed, a very good thing, because this will also curtail down further the rate of the students not attending the schools, because the majority of our when we talk in terms of the poverty level, we know that there are many students who cannot afford, and purely because of the scholarships offered by the state and the central government, the students are able to go to schools. So indeed, if this thing happens, a single window system for scholarships, surely it will help in retaining the students in education. Currently, we have the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, and now it has been named as Samagra Shiksha. Then strengthening the or establish Bal Vikas bonds, where children of all ages can visit once a week. The schools can be a point of celebration and honor for the whole community. Then one more important thing is that they are talking about that when the schools are unutilized, they can be converted into what is called as the Samajik Chetna Kendra, where there can be promotion of social, intellectual, voluntary activities. So the infrastructures can be utilized, because we know that when the schools are not working, or when there are holidays, the infrastructure remains unutilized. So it is a very good thing that the government schools, where they have a very good infrastructure, it can be utilized for this Samajik Chetna Kendra, where the volunteers and those who want to come and contribute or work together can have some uh, uh, point of contact where they can come together and deliberate. Then standard setting and accreditation, a very important thing. As all of you know that, okay, in the higher education, we have to undergo the accreditation process, and it is mandatory for all the professional colleges. I hope all the students are also aware that currently there are two accreditation agencies for the higher education. We have the National Board of Accreditation, which accreditates the departments. As all of you may be aware that in our institute, we have three of our departments being accredited by NBA, that is the electronics, instrumentation, and electrical. And also after that, we have got accreditation from the National Board of Accreditation with A grade for the institute as a whole. So currently in the professional colleges, yeah, these are the two systems of accreditation. But now this accreditation system will be brought into the education system also, which in fact is a very good move, because we know that currently because there is no accreditation, the schools do not adhere to certain norms, or the quality is also not there what is expected and what we have been talking about. So a very good policy which will be brought in about. And then who will going to monitor this is the Director of School Education, where we have the DOs and BOs, that is the District Education Officers and the Block Education Officers. And there will be a effective quality self-regulation accreditation, we said. So a very good thing that even for the schools, there will be now accreditation. I think what I've heard from our school is that yes, they have started, but now since it is into the policy, I think it will be made mandatory for all the schools to undergo the accreditation process. And once the accreditation process is made mandatory, surely it will help these schools to upgrade themselves in all the possible ways. Because when we talk about a school or a college, the important thing is, yeah, whether you have the requisite infrastructure, then whether you have teachers as per the number required, then whether your teachers are qualified, whether they are upgrading themselves, then whether you have a good library facility, whether then you have common facilities, whether you have your playground, then whether you are contributing to the society, and so more things are there. So which I think, if the accreditation system comes into the school education, surely the teachers, once they undergo all these things, it will automatically bring the level up of the students. I should also say from my own experiences that yes, surely I've been into the education system since the last 25 years, and we have seen that yes, this accreditation which was introduced in the year 1996 has surely made a drastic upgradation of all the institutes, higher education institutes, and for that matter, even the teachers who are into this education. So I think it will also help the schools. Then uh, another important thing is the health checkup of the overall system, because there should be feedback. We have already talked about the National Assessment Center, the PARAK. Uh, Now, before moving on to this higher education, I'll just take a recap of what we have discussed up till now. So, the major thing what we have discussed is that the structure, the previous one, 10 plus 2, has now changed into the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 pattern, where the first 5 years will be a play group. There won't be any examinations till the second standard. From third standards, the examinations will be there. Then we have that the medium of language in the schools will be mother tongue, basically. Then from the higher standards, the students can go in for any languages. In the secondary schools, the students can go in for vocational subjects. So this is just a recap, and for this we have seen that how the teachers should upgrade themselves, what are the facilities government should give, and what the private players should give. So this is just a recap of what we have seen up till now. Now let us move on to the second part of this policy, which talks about the higher education. So since all of us are into the higher education, I think most of the things what I'll be talking, we have already started implementing. So I think over here we can just move at a much faster rate. So we know that India is moving towards becoming a knowledge economy, a very important thing. And we are talking about building about the character, ethical, constitutional values, intellectual curiosity, scientific temper, and so on and so forth, which, as I said, that since we have gone into the accreditation processes, all these things have already started coming into the picture. And the higher education must form the basis for knowledge creation and innovation. This is what is the tagline for higher education, that it must form the basis for knowledge creation and innovation, and it should contribute to the national economy as a whole. So very important thing which all of us should take a notice, that all of us must contribute to the knowledge creation and innovation, and as a whole we must contribute to the national economy. Then here we have a table. The table is the left hand side talks about what are the major problems currently faced by the higher education system in India, and the right hand column talks about that how it is certain challenges will be overcome. So I'll just read over here quickly. So currently we have a fragmented higher education system, which all of you know. Less emphasis on the development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes. Very true. There is a rigid separation of disciplines with early specialization and streaming, which we have seen that right from the 11th we have the arts, commerce, science, then limited teacher, there is no autonomy for the teachers and the schools, then limited access for particularly socially economically disadvantaged group, with few higher education that teach in local languages, lesser emphasis is on research, then suboptimal governance and leaderships in higher educations, and ineffective regulatory system is there, large affiliating universities resulting in low standards of undergraduate education, which I hope all of you are aware about all these major problems, and let us see now how these problems can be overcome. So the first thing is they are talking about the multidisciplinary universities. All of you are aware that currently all of you are in the choice-based credit system. But when we actually talk about the choice-based credit system, there is no choice given to you at all. Only the choice which is given to you students is now in the third year, some subjects you can choose, or in the fourth year, some subjects are given to you. But when we look at the American system, when we talk about the choice-based system, there is a basket of different subjects given to them, and the students can choose from them. So similar thing, the multidisciplinary universities will come into picture, and then the students can start getting an option as to what they can learn. So now what we are talking about is that the tight compartment, arts, commerce, science, there is a very tight thing, and art students cannot take commerce subjects, commerce cannot take science, science cannot take arts. So when these multidisciplinary subjects universities do come, then we will actually go in for the choice-based credit system. So we are moving towards that. So moving towards multi and undergraduate education, then moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy. So now it has been made mandatory that the colleges should start going in for autonomy. Then revamping of curricula has already started. Establishment of the National Research Foundation, I'll again emphasize on this further. Governance of HEIs by high qualified independent boards, a light but tight regulation by a single regulator of higher education. We'll see what this is. Currently, as I said, there are various agencies who are governing, and there is no coordination. And many a times it is a problem to the institutions, as well as the systems are not implemented properly. So let us see how what the policy says about it. And then increase access, equity, inclusion through a range of measures, including greater opportunities for outstanding public education. We have already seen this in school education. So this is we have talked about what are the problems currently faced in the higher education and how it can be overcome. Then the institutional restructuring and consolidation. Before going, as I already mentioned, that the current gross enrollment ratio is 26.3% as of the 2018 data, and by 2035, the government is aiming to take it to 50%, and institutions will have options to run open distance and online programs. Now, certain recently I heard that IIT Madras has started an online BSc course. So now the things have started working in this way because we want to increase the gross enrollment ratio, because we feel that the current infrastructure and the current number of colleges may not be sufficient if we want to go in to achieve the 50% of the gross enrollment ratio. And then the important thing, what we are seeing is that in the near future, there will be only the concept of university. There won't be the concepts like deemed to be university, affiliating technical university, unitary university. So everything henceforth later on will be just called as a university. And what is expected, I'll just give example of our institute. So what the policy says is that the institutions who are currently affiliated to the universities, they first must become autonomous themselves. After autonomy, they must aspire for the university. And then when they aspire for the university, they must be going in for larger, broader areas where they can have multidisciplinary universities. So by 2040, it is expected that all the independent colleges who are working today may be moving on to universities. This is what is the structure of the other American and Union, or globally, this is what the structure is being followed. So I think by 2040, we can expect all these changes. And why the students who are attending this program, why the awareness program is over here is that, yeah, today certain things may impact you. But again, the things which I have talked about, the school education, may be impacting your own children and kids. Or maybe if you further want to go in for higher education after certain years, it will just be useful to you understanding what are the future aspects of this education policy. That is why today we have kept this awareness program, so at least you know what is the policy. Because up till now, I should say that even since even we were into education, we never read the policies, and we were not knowing what were the key highlights of the education policy. So today, at least, because the government has said that the awareness program should be carried out, and many webinars have happened. Probably many of you might have seen or attended many webinars, and you might have got certain insights of what I am talking today. This is why we have kept this today's thing. And then, as I mentioned, that autonomous degree granting colleges will be there, ACs. Then further colleges could evolve into the research intensive or teaching intensive universities. So this is what is being expected. And by 2040, all the higher education shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. So this is what is being expected. So maybe down the line after 40 years, when you visit our institute, you'll see that maybe our institute will be converted into a multidisciplinary university at that time. Yeah. Then towards a more holistic and multidisciplinary. So the policy talks about the MERUs, that is multidisciplinary education and research universities. Currently, the IITs have started with this. You maybe when you visit the IITs or IIMs, you'll see that now they are not only catering, even IITs, they are not catering only to the technical education, but they have started moving into the other aspects or teaching the subjects related to the arts or commerce and other backgrounds, or even for that matter, liberal arts. Or so this has started happening. So we have said that credits will be also given on bachelor degree programs, and for these subjects, if they are done through a ODL, it will be also taken as it, that is open distance learning. So as I mentioned, that even that will be there. Now coming to a very important thing, this is a highlighted over here. See, now our current structure is that you know that once you have taken admission, let us say in arts, that is BA or BSc or BCom or engineering, then engineering is of 4 years. Now this is a very tight structure. Now this new policy talks about is that, okay, when you take admission, if you complete just 1 year of your graduation, you'll be given a certificate. When you complete 2 years, you'll be given a diploma certificate, or you'll be called that you have completed a diploma. When you complete 3 years, it will be called as that you have completed graduation. And when you have completed 4 years, it will be said that, okay, you have achieved the, you have gone through the research level. So at any point of time, you can either enter or you can exit, because the government have seen or analyzed that many college students drop out. The main reason is that they have constraints usually of the finances, or there can be other their own problems, or there can be any other problems. So and what happens is that, let us say we take an example. I'll talk about the latest example of one of the students of our own college, instrumentation department, a very latest case which has happened. The student, he completed his third year instrumentation, and in fourth year, because of some or the other problem, he thought of leaving the course. Now, what has happened to him is that in the current structure, now since he has left from his third year, now he won't be called as that he has completed his degree program. He has not completed his BA degree. But now in the new education system, probably that fellow, after completion of 3 years, he'll at least be getting a degree, a graduate degree 3 years, which now will he will be becoming eligible for the other competitive and other exams, and that degree will be recognized. As of today, that student who has left in the fourth year, the degree is of no use to him. So I think that this current program, the current policy, is a very good policy as of for the current year students. Probably let us see whether into the graduation, I don't know whether one more thing is that we'll be having the academic credit bank. So this academic credit bank will just add to the credits whatever you have done. So even if you complete 1 year, your credits will be accumulated in that academic credit bank. You again come do another second year, you do the diploma, then you after some time you come do the graduation, after some time you come and do the research. So this will be possible, and the government is going to create the academic bank for credit called as the ABC. Now, when we come to the master's program, currently the master program is that you know that when you do your BA, there is a 2 year course of MA. If you do your BCom, there is a 2 years course of MCom. If you do BSc 3 years, then you have a 2 years course of MSc. When we do currently engineering of 4 years, still you have to do 2 years of ME. But now in this new structure, what has happened is that they have made the program in such a way that if you have done 3 years bachelor program, then you'll have to do 2 years for a master's. But if you have done a 4 years course, then you'll have to just do 1 year's master program. or you can go in for a integrated 5 years course, right from your whatever things you want to take. And as I said that there won't be tight compartments as the arts, commerce, or science or engineering. So it will be a multidisciplinary colleges where you will be having the choice that when you want to enter and when you want to leave your education. So a very good thing. And the important thing what has been done is that the MPhil program shall be discontinued, and it will be discontinued maybe by 2030 or what they have given the period. Then a very important thing is, as we said in the very first slide, is that we have to contribute for the knowledge economy and innovation and for the development of our nation. And this will be only possible when the higher educations will focus on research and innovation. And for this to happen, now the even the government has started talking about the Startup India, Made in India, and so many other things where the government is promoting all these things. And as I said, that incubation centers have also been set up by many engineering colleges, and it is a very good thing. And these are the things which the higher education systems will be doing. And then promotion for interdisciplinary research is being given. So, lot many flexibility has been brought into the overall education system. Then moving on to the optimal learning environments and support for the students. So we have said that the higher education shall move away from the high-stake examination towards more continuous and comprehensive evaluation. So again, what we talked in the school education, that the examination system will be modified, similar things will happen. And I think in our choice-based credit system already the things have started, where based on your continuous evaluation and other things, you have started getting the grades. Then what has been said is that each institution will integrate its academic plans ranging from curricular improvement to quality of classroom transaction into the institution development plan. As of today, yes, we do have the perspective plan, which is being asked by when we go in for accreditation. We are being asked what is your perspective plan, and we have to give them ahead of 5 years what we are going to do. Even now, the policy has started talking that all the institutions uh, must have the institution development plans. Then internationalization, as of today, you know that our students are only going in for higher education abroad, mostly to USA, and very few students going abroad. But we are never thinking the other way around, that students from other countries should come to our country and they should get educated, because India can afford an affordable education. So I think that since a very long time, the foreign universities bill was pending. With this policy, the bill will come into existence, and the government has taken care that only the top 100 universities will be allowed to set up their universities in India, which I think is a very good thing indeed, because when uh, when those universities come into India, we'll have certain reference benchmarks, and all the universities in India or institutions will see to it that they reach up to those standards. So it will be a very good thing. And then the credits acquired in foreign universities will be also permitted to be transferred. So this have been taken care. Then the student activity and participation, I already talked. We have already all these things brought in. I won't go into the details. Lot many things you have seen or you are experiencing all those things. So these things have been brought into the policy. Even though our institute as a whole, we are seeing that there is a holistic development. And if you read over here, all the things probably we are doing today. So before the policy itself, we had started taking an optimal learning environment and support. We already talked about this financial support for students. As of today, you know that all the students from SC, ST, OBC, ACDGs, they are having all the government scholarships. So there will be a national scholarship portal which will be extended to support, foster, and track the progress, which already has been started. Then motivated, energized, and capable faculty. We talked about the school teachers. Same thing applies for the higher education students. And one important thing, the policy talks that the faculty not delivering on basic norms will be held accountable. Up till now, this was not there in the policy, but now the policy is talking about holding the teachers accountable, because there are many teachers who just point out to certain norms and statutes, and they are not contributing wholeheartedly for the development of themselves, not to the development of the institute, not to the development of the students. So let us see how this policy makes those teachers contribute in the best possible manner. And then for teachers, there will be promotion systems. Already these things are in place for the higher education system, so I won't talk. Then one more important thing for the leadership positions, there will be an overlapping time period. Let us take example that let us assume that maybe I'll be retiring. So before I retire, 1 year prior to that, another person will be appointed. So he comes to know, and there won't be lapses. So there will be a smooth transition from one position to another position. So even this has been talked in the policy. Then the steps to be taken by the government and steps to be taken by the higher educations for improving all these things. So the government has to earmark suitable government funds. So funding has to be there. Set up clear targets for the gross enrollment ratio, enhance gender balance, enhance the access of establishing more higher quality educations, develop and support higher quality education, provide more financial assistance, conduct outreach programs, develop and support technology tools. And what higher education institutes have to do is they have to mitigate the opportunities, provide more financial assistance, conduct outreach programs, make admission process more inclusive, increase employability, ensure all building and facilities are available, provide socially, economically, and disadvantaged students, then ensure sensitization of faculty, counselors, and strictly enforce non-discrimination. So these are few things which the government and the institution should take care of. Then teachers education, we have talked about. Only one important point is that all the PhD entrants, they'll have to undergo the actual teaching experience. This is what has been noted in the policy. So all those who will be doing their PhD, it will be mandatory for them to have a certain number of minimum hours of actual teaching in their course. Currently, we have the coursework, and then minimum 3 years you can get the PhD degree. But along with this now, the PhD candidates will have to also take the teaching experience. Then the national mission for monitoring will be there. Reimagining vocational education. We have been talking about the vocational education, which we said that in the schooling itself, right from the 6th standard, the vocational examination will be given. So the 12th 5-year plan, the figure of India, that in the age group of 19 to 25%, we have only 5% of the students who have received vocational education, as compared to USA it is 52%, Germany 75%, and South Korea it is 96%. So in South Korea, almost 96% of the students have undergone the vocational courses, and they are well versed with trades. So for this, we have the National Skills Qualification Framework, which has already come into existence 13. And by 2025, we are expecting that at least 50% of the learners will undergo the vocational training. For this, the government has started giving even vocational courses for the higher educations. In the last year, it was offered for engineering colleges, and for that matter, many of the engineering colleges have started with the vocational courses in Pune also. So this has been taken care of. Then the National Committee for Integration of Vocational Education will be there. And now, in order to promote these vocational courses, the policy talks about incubation centers to be set up in all the higher education institutions in partnership with industries. So very important thing that if such things will happen, then those students who are undergoing vocational courses in schools, they'll be having a lot many infrastructure facilities available in and around along with them. And even the higher education institutions, they'll be making their students work in the incubation centers and developing entrepreneurs from them. So very important thing which has been talked about in this policy. Then catalyzing quality academic research. We know that as of today, when we are talking about contributing to the nation's economy, we know that the government is spending very little on the research. As for that matter, only 0.69 of the GDP, whereas in USA it is 2.8%, in Israel it is 4.3%, and South Korea it is 4.2%. So the government is thinking of even increasing the amount in this area. So let us hope that the teachers who are listening to this may be getting, and for the overall education, it was the government will be spending 6% of the GDP. Today it is hardly around 3%. So the government is also taking care that the amount should be spent in the budget head in that way. So the policy has been also talking about the research, and the research should be interdisciplinary, and there should be certain outcomes from the research, and there will be certain things. Okay, so the important thing is that currently the faculty members may be knowing that there are various agencies who are giving the research grants. But now what the policy mentions is that they will be establishing what is called as the National Research Foundation, NRS, or they will be the nodal center. And whereas the other agencies who are distributing the grants like DST, Department of Atomic Energy, or the Department of Biotechnology, Council of Bio, they'll be giving the grants independently as per their priorities and needs, but to monitor and to facilitate or a bridge between these agencies and the teachers or the researchers, the National Research Foundation will work together. So the primary activities of the NRF will be fund competitive peer-reviewed grant proposals. Then they'll see that seed, grow, and facilitate research at academic institutions, act as a license between researchers and relevant branches, and recognize outstanding research. So these are the activities which the NRF will do. Then the important thing which this policy have been talking about, when I talked about that there are many agencies who are governing the education system. So now the regulatory system will be transformed, and the transformation is that we'll be having only one Higher Education Commission of India. Under that, there will be four councils. The first council, that is a National Higher Education Regulatory Council, which will be acting as a regulatory body, taking into consideration all the things which the institution should be doing in terms of infrastructure, teachers, and other things. Then National Accreditation Council will be there. Then we have the higher education grants. So there will be one grant, the NRF, what we have. So Higher Education Grants Council will be there, and then the General Education Council, GEC, will be there. And then the other professional councils, as the Agricultural Research Council, Veterinary Council, NCET, will be there, and they will be acting as professional standard setting bodies. Yeah. Then moving towards transforming the regulatory systems of higher education. So curbing of commercial of educations will take place. I won't go into the details. So the regulatory bodies will see to it that there is no commercialization of education. Then moving on to the third part, other key aspects, we'll just move a little faster. There will be professional educations. We are aware about that. We have the agriculture, legal, healthcare, and technical education as of today. Adult education. The policy is going to emphasize on the adult education and lifelong skills. So a curricula will be framed even for the adult education. Then I won't go into the what is being talked about in the adult education is that the curricula will focus on foundation for literacy, critical life skills, vocational skill development, basics of education, and continuing education. So the adult education, the curricula will emphasis on these points. I will not go into this slide. Then promotion of Indian languages, arts, and culture. The policy also talks about giving emphasis on more on Indian languages. A very good thing which we have said that at the school level itself, in the middle school, the students will be able to learn other languages, Indian languages, and as we have said that till the fifth standard, the students may be able to learn in their own mother tongue. So much greater flexibility is been given. And the important thing is that the policy also proposes that program should be offered in bilingual. So when we say bilingual, it is by default the mother tongue and the medium of language which has been chosen for that particular thing. So I think it is a very good thing, that because we know that we can understand things in our own mother tongue. So if these things happen, it will really help the students in understanding even the technical subjects in a much better way, and they can reproduce the things in a much better way. Because as teachers, what we have observed is that there are many students coming from the rural background, and many a times they do not understand the concepts and they are not able to reproduce or write. And this is the major reason for many of the students failing in the subjects. But later on, as they understand, they go on. But if this facility is provided, one more important thing is that the students will appreciate. Today on the YouTube, there are many technical videos which are there into the vernacular languages. There are many videos in Hindi or Marathi also, and I have seen that many of the students prefer listening to those videos and they understand in a much better way. And now this has been talked in the policy itself. So let us hope that this things comes and the future generation may get this facility of learning into their own language, the curricula. So I think this is a major step which has been taken, and also it will help in promotion of the Indian language. One more thing is that we have been talking about the translation and interpretation. Other factors of arts and museum, archaeology has been talked. I won't go into the details. And Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation will also be established, which will help again uh, uh, saving the Indian languages. And then we have Sanskrit will be the mainstream and the strong offerings in the school, which already is there. But I think they are preferring that Sanskrit should be learned by all the schools. Let us see how these things happen. Then, as we have already talked, I won't go into the details of promotion of Indian languages. So the emphasis has been given about promotion of Indian languages, arts and culture, because when we talk about language, we should also talk about the arts and culture and whatever traditions we have. First of all, many a times all the students will agree with me that they are not aware of our traditions, or they are even not aware about the culture and arts what we have in India today. So I think that if these things are made known to them in their school and their higher education, I think it will be of great benefit, and the overall development of the students will take place. Technology use and integration, since we are into the higher education, all of us aware that we are making optimum use of the technology, and even this pandemic has made use of the technology in a drastic way. Even the school teachers have started going into this, so there will be a very much emphasis on the technology. I won't go into the details of this technology use and integration. So teaching learning e-contents will be continued to be developed by NCRT, CIT, CBSE, and they will be on the Diksha platform. Diksha stands for Digital Infrastructure for Knowledge Sharing. Then we also have the NRF. I have talked about it. I won't go into the details. So even the policy I've been talking about the disruptive technologies of AI and other things. The policy also talks about offering PhD and master programs with disruptive technologies like AI plus some other things. So the emphasis has been given also given on the latest technologies will be upcoming into the field of education. Online digital education, yeah, detailed things are there. I hope all of you will agree that we, as our institute is also following all these things. Currently, we have started with the virtual labs. Blended learning models are also there. We won't go into the details. So these all things we have already started following ahead of the policy itself. Uh, then we move on to the last policy. The very important thing, as I already said in my beginning remarks, is that okay, the policy will be very good, or it is very good, but the thing lies is that how it is implemented and who is going to implement, and with the right spirit, if it is being implemented. Surely, whatever aims and visions have been kept by the policymakers, I think we'll be able to uh, achieve those by 2040. So the policy recommends strengthening and empowering the Central Advisory Board of Education. Then to bring focus back on education, we have already said the MHRD to be redesignated as Ministry of Education, which has already happened in the 50 when the policy came into existence in July month. This has already been converted. Then I already talked about that the Indian government will be spending 6% of the GDP. Let us hope that because of the funds, it would not happen that certain things implemented. Then the policy identifies the following programs. I won't go into the details. So the policy also calls for regeneration, and at the end we have said that there should be certain things. The light but tight regulatory approach should be there, that mandates for full public self-disclosure and finances procedures, courses and program offerings and education. So if we have regulators acting as facilitators, working as light but tight policy, surely whatever has been planned, if there is proper coordination amongst the government agencies and the private players, we think that whatever the policy has mentioned surely by 2040, whatever the committee, I hope all of you are aware that this education policy committee was headed by Dr. Kasurangan, our ex-ISRO director. This name I specially took at the end because when you have heard his name, you might have realized that with what authenticity and what deep thoughts might have gone into when the policy was designed. And when we have seen the overall presentation, when we say yes, surely if the things are dictated by 2040, what is the vision is that Indian education should be none to other. That is, we'll be best in the world. Yes, surely we'll be able to achieve this. So, implementation, as we have said, uh, the we have the MHRD, CAB, all these government agencies will be there. Then implementation will be guided by the following principles. So spirit and intent of the policy initiatives in a phased manner. It is very important to note that the policy will not being brought in one day. Certain timelines have been given, and as I said, that certain policies matters have already started being implemented. So it will be in phased manner. Prioritizations will be there for certain important things. There will be comprehensiveness. Then education, it being being in the concurrent subject, it will need careful planning, joint monitoring, and collaboration with between the center and state. Then timely infusions will be there, and careful analysis and review has to be there. So the guidelines for implementation are given, and the responsible bodies will have to see to it that it happens in the way it has been stated in the policy. Implementation I have already talked about. Yeah. So moving on to the very last slide. So to summarize the entire thing, we can summarize it in just 13 points. I'll go slowly, the last slide. So the new education policy 2020 replaces the one formulated in 1986, modified in 1992. So the key feature of this today's policy is public spending on education by state center to be raised to 6% of the GDP, a very important point. A new curricular framework including the preschool and Anganwadi, mother tongue and medium of institution till class 5 wherever possible. I have already said. Mission to ensure literacy and numeracy skills by 2025. So in another 5 years, we are saying that this should be achieved. That is very true because the policy has started, and right from the first structure, that is 5 plus 3 plus 4. So taking into consideration that the policy has started in 2020, so by 2025, they are expecting that we'll be ensuring the literacy and numeracy skills in the students. The new curricula to be included skills like coding and vocational integration from class 6, a very thing which I mentioned. Then class 10th and 12 board exams to be made easier and redesigned. A new accreditation framework and important authority to regulate public. So accreditation will be brought for the schools. The National Education Technology Forum and a separate technology unit to enhance digital learning. We have seen undergraduate education to become more holistic and multidisciplinary. MPhil courses will be discontinued. The new umbrella regulator for all higher education except medical and legal. So medical and legal won't fall under the higher education council. They will be still separate. Then college affiliation system to be phased out in another 15 years. As I mentioned that down the line, even our college will be moving to become an university, and within the next 15 years, there won't be the system of affiliated colleges. All the colleges will be autonomous. And the last one is Ministry of Human Resource Development to be renamed as the Ministry of Education, which has already happened. So with this, I have finished with the presentation. I think I have gone into much details of the policy. It is a 60-page policy, and wherever I thought that more emphasis should be given, because if you see, if I summarize, the summary would have just taken 10 minutes, but we thought that since we wanted to make an awareness of both the students and the teachers, I thought that we should make certain elaborations, which I think I have done that. Now, if there are certain questions, we'll take. I request Mosmi Madam to further take over. And if there are questions, or if there are questions in the chat box, we'll take those questions. Or if students want, they can raise their hands. Students or teachers, anybody who's attending, they can raise their hands, and I'll be happy to answer to those questions or queries. Thank you all. Thank you. Yeah, madam, please go ahead.
She has asked, policy for primary education, is it applicable to convent school also?
Policy is applicable to all the schools in India. There is no separate policy for uh, the government schools and private schools. The policy will be there. And as I said, that you may be having the concern of that till 5 years of age, whether the education will be in the mother tongue. So as of today, there is no clarity about this, but the policy has said that preferably the education till fifth standard should be in mother tongue. But as we know that this is also a concern raised by many educationists that it may not be possible now, because we know that everybody wants to put their child in an English medium school. Three languages will be there. Yeah, so the policy everybody in India. Shailesh, you can ask your question. Right.
Sir, it is going to implement this year?
Yeah, it has already started. See, now the policy came into being from 2020. As I already mentioned, see, it is just a policy. It is not a notification nor a resolution of the government. And if you have seen my last slide, implementation. So the government has clearly mentioned that it will be implemented in the phase manner. So now just to mention about what things they have started implemented. So the first thing that they talk that the MHRD must be converted into Ministry of Education, which they have already started. Then if you go to the higher education part, to higher education, you you might have observed that many of the things which are talked in the policy, we have already started implementing those things, right? So the policy will be implemented in a phased manner. Yeah. So it is not that right from tomorrow the policy will come into existence and everything will change. No, it is not going to happen in that manner. It will be implemented in a phased manner, and the government says that be giving certain priorities to certain things, and then slowly the things will. And by 2040, they want that the entire policy would have been implemented and they would have achieved the target. Yeah, is it clear?
Okay, sir, one more question. Like
Yes.
you explained that for a school teacher, there is an integrated course, B.Ed program is there, that mandatory. Is there any new policy for engineering teacher or any professional colleges teacher to have such any course,
Yeah.
any degree
Now
certificate
it has not
required?
been mentioned. Yeah. Now what has happened is that in the education policy, it has not been mentioned. But as of currently, the All India Council for Technical Education has made it mandatory for the new entrants that they should undergo 8 NPTEL programs for them to become eligible to become a teacher. So in the policy, this thing has not directly been mentioned, but the policy mentions that there should be certain, what you can say, the teachers must be made to undergo trainings. So AICT has also taken up, because as all of us know that for engineering education teachers, there was no thing that they should have either B.Ed or D.Ed courses. Directly after their eligibility, previously it was that even a BE teacher should come and teach, then it happened ME. So now the AICT, since the last year, it has made mandatory to all the teachers entering into this profession is that they should undergo 8 courses and then they become eligible to be a teacher. So it has come into, whereas for the schools teachers, as we have said that B.Ed is mandatory and it will become a 4 years course after 2030. So they have given this period. So as of today, in the policy does not mention specifically for higher education teachers, but as I mentioned, AICT has brought this into effect. Now, as we have said that when we talked about the education policy, so education policy will be always giving guidelines to all these different boards. Right. Now, whether because in the policy does not state that whether there will be a single board all over India, or whether again these boards will be into existence and they'll have to follow the guidelines. So this is not mentioned in the policy, but whatever the guidelines are given in the policy, I hope that all the boards will have to follow them. This is what even most of the things which I heard from the educationists, they have the same say. No, nobody is going to lose their job. In fact, there will be more recruitment of the teachers. But when the recruitment is there, there will be tight regulation. We have seen that currently we have the teachers entrance test, so it will be there. And when we have seen the teacher pupil ratio, uh, for it was 30 is to 1 and 25 is to 1 in the socially and economically disadvantaged areas. So I think it will increase more number of teachers. Nobody will lose their jobs. Even if when we are saying that the compartment will be removed, that is in the 11 12 we have arts, commerce and science, but those teachers will be there because the students are going to come over there and they have to teach. Only thing is they'll have to upgrade themselves according to what subjects are being offered. So this is what will happen. No teacher, I think, will lose his job. Only thing is that the teacher must remain is that he must upgrade him or herself as per what the education policy has offerings. And we have already said that the teachers will have to undergo certain short-term courses, which I already mentioned in the presentation. So this is what the existing teachers will have to do. And for the new entrants, all this new policies will be there, that 4-year integrated B.Ed and programs. But for those existing, surely they'll have to make their upgradations. As I talked for the Anganwadi teachers, we said that those Anganwadi teachers who are having qualification 10+2, they'll have to do a 6-month certification. Those whose qualification is below that, they'll have to do a diploma. Again, when I talked about the B.Ed programs, I talked about the short-term programs which the teachers will have to take. So that will come, because as I said that as the deadlines are going to come, the committees will be formed and they'll be coming with those policies and clarity in those things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this question was also there on many forums, but as the important thing, we know that English is a global language, and it is not mandatory that the student should know that language till fifth standard, because there are so many eminent personalities who have learned through their mother tongue only. So this fear that these students may not learn English, I think may not be relevant that much, because what we ultimately know is that if the student till his fifth standard, if he is able to understand the concept and grasp those things, he may be learning these things, because you may be knowing that there are many eminent personalities who have done their schooling from their vernacular schools, but today they are on the top positions. So I think this will not be an issue at all. This is just a fear in the mind of parents that what will happen, because it is just a language, and a language can be learnt at any given of time. Just to give an example, students, even students who are into engineering, now they have started learning the Japanese or German language, and down the line, maybe after 3 or 4 years, they learn the requisite language which is important for them. So even for English, same thing is applicable. Am I clear? So that fear is does not hold good. Yeah, the new policy says that it is important that that has to be there. But for the I mentioned the previous thing also, those who are into service, they'll have to upgrade themselves, and those who are new entrant or new entrants, whatever comes after this, it will be followed. That is a 4-year build-up programs and other things. What is this integrated diploma college? Yeah, so that, yeah, the integrate, it is not integrate. The diploma college is 10 plus 3. So again, yeah, there will be changes. Changes will be there, because what we are saying now is that after the in the secondary, right from the 9 till 12 standard, there will be there. So the policy has nowhere mentioned about this diploma colleges as of today. So maybe later on clarifications will come. But what is expected, as we said, is that when we go into the higher education, after 12th, even if the student completes 1 year, he gets a certification. He completes 2 years, he gets a diploma certificate. When he completes 3, he gets a graduation. When he completes 4, he gets a research certificate. So I think this is there in the policy. I think if the policy goes in the same way, then probably the diploma colleges may be converted into the higher educations where they'll be catering to these needs. The colleges may not be closed down. Only the things will be changed. And that too not now immediately, because the deadlines have not been given for these things. So we may say that certain time, maybe another 10 years will be given. And after that, it is possible, because after 10 years, if the new entrants come, and if the new system is there, automatically the diploma colleges will have upgraded themselves into the higher education institutes, as what we have been talking about. Yeah, yeah. Challenges in what? Uh, as I mentioned that challenges are many, because the thing is that we have talked or we have seen the policy at a length. There are many good things. The challenge is only how it is or how it will be implemented, and how the responsible persons for implementing this, how they take it. So the implementation will be only the challenge. This is what I feel. Yeah, because as we have seen that one example I gave you about the because the government is aiming that the higher education enrollment ratio must go from 25% till 50%, and for that now they are going to start with the open distance learning courses. And I gave you example of the IIT Madras starting with the BSc course. So for you students also, those who are aspiring for going for higher education, you can go for all these online courses, which has already started. So this is an advantage for you students. Yeah, one thing I missed out. Yes, there will be a fee regulatory authority, and the care about the exorbitant fees being charged will be taken care of. As all of you know that for at least higher education or for that matter engineering colleges, we have the fee regulatory authority which governs the fees of the college. So similar things will also come for the schools, and I think it has already started coming. So there will be those agencies will look into that. Exorbitant fees are not being charged. The fees will be charged on the basis of the expenses being made by the schools also. So this I think maybe immediately, even in the next year, this is possible. Or I think I'm not aware, but for the state already this thing has happened. The state government has already having this policy into place where they are governing the fee structure of the schools. They have already appeared. And as of today, as I said, that policy is not going to come into existence from tomorrow, right? So it will be going into phase manner. See, if you recall, by 2025, what they are saying is that they want to achieve the numeracy and literacy and numeracy. So they have said that okay, 2020 we have started policy, and in the first 5 years, so maybe from this year, the first phase will start for the Anganwadis and other things. So down the line, 5 years, they'll be expecting that.